show. Author's Corner, she asked about the books they wrote. And she interviewed the authors on the books they wrote.
Well, I am so excited to have a conversation with John Simon. His book is such a game changer, Virtual Justice. You can see it behind him. You know, you think about neuroscience, think about AI, and John has had such a spectacular career, and he's talking about in this novel things that he really knows about and things that we're talking about a lot in today's society, and we're going to keep talking about it for years and decades to come. John, of course, a neuroscientist for 30 plus years. Wow. And then the advent of AI and how that meshes into this world and this character is so fascinating. So, John, thanks so much for coming on Author's Corner.
Okay, thank you, Kate. Yeah, this is awesome being able to talk about my book, and you're such a comforting figure. I must say, you're really, really good at what you're doing, so I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for saying that. It's interesting. I want to talk about your career because I think you write about what you know, and when you do that, it really pours into novels, especially. We've seen great examples of that. But, you wrote so many papers in your career as a neuroscientist. Did you ever think that you would dovetail that into novel writing, into the world of fiction?
Well, that's an interesting question. So, yes, I've written 54 peer review publications that deal primarily with neuroscience and the drugs that can help people who have, for example, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and more importantly, brain injury, how you recover from brain injury. So, yeah, I worked in that field. I've always enjoyed writing. Even as a little kid, I remember writing stories and bringing them to my father, who was a Lutheran minister, and he would read them and he says, "That's good, go back, do it again." So I've really enjoyed it, but this is my first entry into novel writing. And so it's interesting that in scientific writing, you have to establish credibility. You have to build scientific information to prove what you're saying is correct. Now, in novel writing, you definitely have to convince the reader of what you're saying and what you're saying is true. So that element carries over. But I don't necessarily have to prove the technology that I'm talking about, even though I try to do it as best I can.
So let's go into the novel and what the novel's about. You've got this character, Stan Tarkle, who is brilliant. He is this young graduate student, and boy, does he take some wicked turns through this book. Tell us more about Stan and what's his plight.
All right. So Stan, I modeled essentially after myself. I was a graduate student at the University of Maryland. Stan is a graduate student. So I'm taking him through the experience of being a graduate student based on what I experienced as a graduate student. The challenges dealing with your advisor and all of this stuff. But Stan always had this idea that he wants to bring justice to the world, and he wants to bring virtual justice into the world. So as a neuroscientist, how can he do that? That's what he's thinking about. And then he becomes aware of a very crucial, challenging murder that took place that I talk about in the very first chapter of the book. And I give a author's note where I say about this murder, this is gruesome, this is challenging, it's very hard to deal with, this very first chapter. But the fact of the matter is that this kind of thing happens all the time and happens every day. And then the character Stan was upset that the murder was released as a result of a technicality. His Miranda rights were violated. So anyway, that's where he starts. He wants to accomplish virtual justice, and he wants to do it by developing a technology that allows one to empathically read someone's mind. And so in doing so, this technology will allow or will permit the murderer to walk in the shoes of his victim. So that's why the first chapter is so gruesome, because I want the murderer to experience what he did to that victim. And this technology allows that to happen. And that's how it develops throughout the rest of the story.
Yeah, tell us more about his AI companion and his girlfriend, too, who plays a big role in the book.
Yeah, so his AI companion, her name is Geraldine, and I call her Jerry. So throughout the novel, we call her Jerry. But she has the personality, the attitude, the makeup that is feminine. And the way I explain that is I say that she cares more about people than she cares about things. And she's really good at caring about things. So the AI character is critical to this book and this story because the AI is magical. It allows Stan to carry out magical technologies that he can then apply to people that he's trying to transform. And the AI, being AI, it can do anything, right? Allows this to take place and allows this to happen. So that's how I use the AI. And Stan's girlfriend is Gloria, and she is the medical director on the team. So the team is composed of 3 people, and Gloria is a nurse by training, and so she adds medical direction to the team, of which there is quite a lot of medical direction that's required when you delve into somebody's brain. You know, there's all kinds of ethical and medical issues that you have to deal with that are discussed in the novel.
Yeah. I'm thinking as we're talking about this, do you think that could ever happen in the future? There have been discussions about that with AI.
So, as I was saying before, I wrote the technology from a position of having it be believable. So, I believe that the technology that I write about, maybe somebody out there is going to read this book and actually carry through and develop this technology for real. But I truly believe that the technology is real. And as you are saying, the technology is enhanced through the development that is applied through artificial intelligence, through Jerry, the AI. So she is just amazing in terms of developing the circuit board that the device is based on. She does this. And then she also, I'm the hands and the feet and the eyes and the muscle of the AI. I'm saying it's Stan. Stan does what the AI tells him to do. So he ends up developing the technology as a patch, which I call the empathator, which is applied to the back of the neck and near the occipital lobe of the brain, which is where your visual memories occur. And so the brain waves or the EEGs that are generated as a result of thought are captured by the patch, and then through And then through radio wave transmission, RFID technology, it eventually gets transferred to a computer. All of this is monitored, controlled by the AI. The AI allows this magic to take place. So having an AI as a character really makes writing the story quite easy, quite simple.
I was going to ask you how fun it was to write it.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, you can imagine that working in the area of neuroscience for 30 years, I have a lot of pent up, caged ideas about how neuroscience works. And so I get to the book, I'm able to write it out and take these ideas that I've developed over 30 years and put them into practice as a narrative, and have characters respond to these ideas, have the subjects respond to these ideas that I've been developing over the past 30 years. So it was really a lot of fun to get that out of my system and on paper, and not have somebody looking over my shoulder and saying, wait, that doesn't work, that's not going to work. And I can make it work in this narrative. So it was a lot of fun.
And we'll be back with more of our conversation with John Simon coming up next here on America Tonight.